Matplotlib scattergram. But before we do that, let's quickly do something before we go ahead. With that, let's quickly do something. Okay, I'm here in my Jupyter's notebook. What we're going to do now, we're going to start by, well, I want to show you, let's import a data set into our Jupyter notebook. But we're going to start by saying import matplotlib. We're going to start by saying that we want to import the matplotlib. I want to import the matplotlib as plight. Then we are going to import pandas. Import pandas as PD. Okay, now we're going to use pandas to this pandas model. We're going to use it to import the Excel spreadsheet. So, we're going to use that to import the Excel spreadsheet. So with pandas, let's say data frame goes to pandas dot CSV underscore read underscore CSV file. Okay, underscore CSV file and pd.read underscore CSV file. And we're going to import this dataset, gun violence in US. Okay, let's take a look at this particular dataset. Here is the dataset here. We have the different types of datasets. We have different columns per dataset, the year, date, quarter, and we have the location where gun violence occurred in US, whether it's a school or it's a religious center or a workplace. Also, we have this known as the total victim of gun violence, and we have the rape type, we have the prior signs of mental health issue, we have the race and gender. So we're going to import this dataset into our Jupyter notebook. Whatever IDE you are using, you are going to import the dataset into that particular IDE. Now I'm going to import that here with this code. Now, so that's our dataset. We're going to import it into now, in order to import this dataset into our now to import this particular dataset into we so let's okay, I don't want to import the whole, I don't want to use the whole dataset in my analysis. So let me just break it and say X is equals to let's say data frame, and I make use of open and close brackets. Now, when we look at that data set, I have location, where the gun violence occurred in US. I also have the total victims of gun violence. Now, when I displayed the data set, you can see the columns. So we have those two columns in our data set. Okay, now having specified this, now we are going to plot that. Now to plot that, we're going to use the ply dot. We're going to use the ply. We're going to use the ply dot bar chart. The ply dot bar in order to import the dataset. Apply dot bar in order to import our dataset. So we already said this. We are using matplots to plot the dataset. So just copy that and let's copy that and just paste it there. Apply dot bar. Okay. Now we are doing the apply dot bar. We're going to bring our x and let's make this to be y. So we're going to bring x and y. Now these are in small, in lower case, excuse me, not the x and y. Then we're going to plot the chart by, excuse me, y dot show. We put that as imply dot show. Excuse me, please. That's where we are having the error. So I couldn't recognize this. Okay, fine. Now you can see that plot a bar chart. Now, if I want to give a name to, I want to give a label to a bar chart, we can simply give a label to a bar chart. We've done this before. Okay, I can simply say y.x label. I call this location where the gun violence are called the US. I copy this and then now this we are making use of the matplotlib in doing this. So we're using the matplotlib in doing this. Okay. Now I can call this those total victims. So those are the two we imported, total victims and location. So I'll now run this and let's see what the matplot the pipe has no attribute x. Okay, let's run it again. Now you can see that we have total victims here. Y, the y-axis, y. Now we're using matplot in plotting this chart as well as giving them labels. We make use of pandas to import our dataset into Jupyter Notebook, and we're now using matplotlib in plotting the charts. Okay, now you can see we have the total victims here, we have the location here. So that means you can give I can give you different attributes to your data set. You can decide that we want to increase the font size of our data set. You can say we want to increase the font size our data set. Okay, let's try saying like this. Font size equals to, let's say 13. Yes, now you can see it's a little bit bigger. The X and Y level is a little bit bigger. Okay, now that we've done this, let's go into Matplotlib. Now we're going to see how to plot a scattergram using the Matplotlib. We can plot the scattergram using the Matplotlib. How we can plot the scattergram. Okay, in order to plot the scattergram in Matplotlib, we make use of the scatter function to we make use of the scatter function in order to plot a chart. We make use of the scatter function in order to plot a scattergram. Now we plot a scattergram of our dataset. So we can look at dataset and see how we can plot a scattergram. With our first and foremost, we're going to import the matplotlib the pyplot as flight, and then we import dataset XY. So what just we need to use is flight.scatter because we're using the scatter word function. Now let's go back to our dataset in Excel spreadsheet. Let's see what we can use there. Okay, now I have the fatality injured total victims of gun violence. Okay, I want to plot the scattergram. Now, scattergram somehow shows the relationship between two sets of data sets. Okay, so it shows a kind of relationship. It shows a kind of existence of a relationship in a data set. Okay, we can decide to say we want to see if there's a relationship between age of the victims of gun violence in US. I want to see that we want to see if there is a relationship between the current age or the age of the shooter of gun violence in US. I want to see if there is a relationship between the age of shooter of gun violence in US and um, the fatality of gun violence in US. I'm trying to see what we can use. Okay, we can decide to let's see the age of shooter. If there's a relationship between the age of shooter and the total victim of gun violence in US. So let's assume that is what we want to do. So all what we need to do is to copy all this. Can simply copy all this and then paste it here. Now, this time around, what I want to do, I want to see if there's a relationship between the age of the shooter and the gun violence in US. If there's a kind of relationship between both. Okay. Now apply the shoe. Since I am talking about scattergram, I'm going to use a scatter function. These are the scatter function in order to plot this particular chart. I'm going to use the scatter function in order to plot this. Okay, then let's say try plotting this. Now you can see the relationship between the age of shooter and the total victims of gun violence. That means the older the person that is involved in a crime of gun violence in the US, the more the victims of such violence. So whenever a gun violence or whenever it occurs in US, the first thing, if we ask, what is the age of a shooter? If the age of a shooter is between 20 and 20 and 50, age of shooter is between 20 and 50, that's an indication that the number of victims of such gun violence will be high. There's a every tendency for it to be high before you will know the exact figure. But what this it tells us that if a person above, let's say if a person above um 12 years old is involved in gun violence and is there is this tendency or this presumption that the gun violence, the victims of such gun violence will be very, very high. Okay? So that's it. That's a very like there's likely every tendency for that to be. Now, we can see from that example, there seems to be a relationship between the age and okay, you can see everything's just on one ground. So it shows that they kind of there's no actual relationship. Okay, because this is giving us 100. Okay, fine. Okay, but it doesn't really show the existence of a relationship between total victims of gun violence and the age of shooter. In other words, irrespective of the age of shooter, the total victim of gun violence is not affected. That is, the older the person is, does not imply that the more will be the total victim as a result of the gun violence. No, based on this, there's no really relationship between those two variables. So, um, okay, let's try something else. Let me try something if this way work. I just want to try putting two different charts. Here at first we add them. Okay, this was what we have initially. I want to plot let me see, I want to try something. Just want to try how it's gonna work. Okay. Let's see. Let me just try it. Let me see. Okay. I can see two charts is being plotted inside that. You can see a scattergram here. The dot represents a scattergram. Why this is location versus total victim. So the two charts are plotted together in one. Okay, but instead of doing it this way, why don't I do age of each shooter? Okay, location. Okay, instead of doing it this way, why don't I do the age of shooter? Okay, let's copy this. Let me do it this way. The age of shooter. The age of shooter and total victim. The other one will be instead of total victim, we can see injured. Out of the total victim, let's see those that were injured. Those that were injured as a result of the gun violence in US. So those that were injured. Okay, both are XY. Let's try plotting this. Okay. Yeah, that's where we have the error. Okay, let's see what is being plotted. Now you can see we have two different, we have the scattergram and we have the bar chart. And it's plotting two charts. So one talks about the total victim, while the other talks about the while one talks about the total victim, the other one talks about those that were injured. Okay. One talks about those that were injured. So we can equally change this to instead of using this okay, age of shooter versus injured, age of shooter versus total victim. Okay, I make it apply dot bar. Okay, I use apply dot bar, so it does that. But let's run it this way. Fine. That's total injured, total injured. That's what it's giving to us for the total injured. Total injured, that is what you can apply the scatter, the show. Okay. Okay, let's see another one here. You can see the differences between the previous one we did and this. Now that's differentiated it. We have two different types of scattergrams. One represents those that were injured, and the other represents the total victims of gun violence in US. Also, we can set a color for each of these charts. We can set a color, whatever color we want. So we're going to paste it down. We're going to paste it there. Okay, where we apply the scatter, we can equally say comma color. Let's say red. Okay, and why this we leave it for the default color to be able to differentiate that. Everything don't pop in now. We have apply the scatter color equals to red. Function argument. Okay, let's see. Okay, function argument is still giving us this. We want to leave it for the default color. We'll just leave the default. So you cannot separate, you cannot differentiate between the two, which is the one for total victim of gun violence, that is this. Total victim is I, why the injured is lower than the total victim of gun violence. But total victim of gun violence include those that were injured and those that are a very serious type of injury as a result of the gun violence in US. Also, you can set your own color for each data set, and that will not be, that is when you have a small data set. When you have a small data set, you can set your color for each of them. You can set a color for each of your data. So it will give you different colors. For instance, this is age, people that are of 10 years or 12 years old that were involved in gun violence. And for that of 20 years, it will give you a different color for that of 10 and that of 20, and so on and so on. Since our data set is quite large, let's just try to skip that. But let's look at color map. Now, a color map is like a list of colors, where each color has a value that ranges from 0 to 100. That is a color map. So the color map is called a varieties, and you can see it. It ranges from 0, which is a purple color, up to 100, which is a yellow color. So 0 is a purple color, while 100 is a yellow color. Now we're talking about color map. You can specify the color map with a keyword argument known as color map, CMAP, that is CMAP, with a value of CMAP or color map, in this case, varieties, which is one of the built-in color maps that is available in Matplotlib. Let's see how we can use this color map. Let's make this color is equals to this color map is equals to let's use yeah, and this color map equals to line 7. Okay, no data column mapping provided by C. Parameter CPM will be ignored. Okay, no column map is provided by C. Let's make this, I think where we have here, I think that's where we are facing errors. Okay, let's quickly run this. Okay, we're telling that the C that I changed to just color ought to be colors. The C does ought to be colors and not the colors is not defined. Okay, as I try to wrap up this section, so what am I going to do now? Let me import Let's just import NPRC. Let's just see if it will work. Let's see if it's going to work. Let's just see if it's going to work. I just want to see if it's going to work because I don't have equivalent numbers. I don't have equivalent numbers. Let's see. Just want to try it. Let's see if it's going to work. If it's going to work, let's just see, just to give it a try. MC color that out is now I can't do it because of my data set. My data set is long and lengthy. Minimum VMAP alpha need in x-axis x, y, c map c map. Okay, my data set is so lengthy. I only want to see if it's going to work, but it's not coming in. So it's not working because my data set is quite large. Okay. Now we're going to take a break here, and we're going to look at the ply.color bar, the ply.the color bar.